People like you, without a job or education, have no place in this house." As my mother-in-law spat those words at me, she simultaneously drenched me with boiling water. "Oh gee, my God. What are you doing?" I couldn't help but shout out loud, taken aback by her sudden action. Pouring boiling water on someone is unimaginable, no matter the circumstance. Luckily, I wasn't burned, but it could have been a disaster. "What? That's what I've been saying. We don't need someone unemployed and uneducated like you here." Is that a reason to pour boiling water on someone? Besides, it's not me but my husband who's unemployed. Gradually, anger began to boil inside me against her words. If that's how it is, I'll do as she wishes. Is that so? If that's what you want, then I have no choice. I'll leave this house. Finally decided to leave, have you? That makes things easier for me. Far from being apologetic, my mother-in-law seemed pleased about me leaving. I couldn't stand another second in that place. Thinking so, I packed my things and returned to my parents' house that very day. My mother-in-law is unaware that it's my husband who's unemployed. I've been covering all the living expenses for the in-laws' household. Since quitting my job and starting to trade stocks, I now make around $30,000 a month. Being kicked out doesn't bother me in the slightest. I can live on my own. They can come crying to me about not being able to pay the bills, but I won't lift a finger. They'll regret kicking me out. 2 years ago, I married my husband, Dylan. We were both from the same university, having known each other since then. "Sarah, where do you plan to work after graduation?" I haven't decided for sure, but I'd like to get into a brokerage firm." Both of us majored in economics, vaguely aspiring to work in finance in the future. After graduation, we managed to land jobs at different brokerage firms. Working as traders, we were both incredibly busy, with a lot to learn and hardly any time to see each other. Yet, our relationship didn't suffer, and 3 years into our jobs, he proposed. "I'll make you happy, no matter what. Marry me." Hearing those words, I believed I could truly make it work with him. Nothing could be happier than living with the person I love. Yes, I'd be honored. And so, we got married, looking forward to a happy life together. But then, he said something I never expected. "Quit your job, and come live with my mom and me at her house, will you?" What? I don't mind quitting, but shouldn't we live by ourselves, being newlyweds? But I'm worried about leaving mom alone, and I'll make sure it's no trouble for you. His father had passed away from a heart attack when my husband was still in middle school. Without any siblings, my husband had lived with his mother ever since. I could understand his concern for her. "If you insist, okay, we'll live together." When we went to greet my mother-in-law, she didn't seem too bad, and with my husband there, I thought we could manage. Agreeing with him, I decided to live with his family. 2 weeks later, my husband and I moved into his parents' house, where we were welcomed by my mother-in-law. She seemed genuinely happy to be living with her son. "Thank you for having us. We're looking forward to it," I said. But the moment I greeted her, her expression clouded over. She looked at me with a cold gaze, seemingly dissatisfied. "Well, it's not like we needed you here." Did I hear that right? She muttered something under her breath, but I couldn't catch it, so I just laughed it off. At that moment, I felt a twinge of anxiety about living with my MIL, but the rest of the day passed without incident. The next morning. "Are you going to sleep all day? Get up and make breakfast." I was awakened by my MIL's yelling. What's the big emergency this early in the morning? I looked at the clock beside my bed. It was still 4 a.m. and pitch dark outside. "Why so early?" I asked. "Just because you're not working doesn't mean you can laze around all day." She scolded me with sleepy eyes. This is way too early, even if I'm not working. Though I thought so, I couldn't talk back to her and started making breakfast as she had ordered. While I was cooking, she continued to berate me. "Hurry up. Why does it take you so long? You're so clumsy." After about 30 minutes, breakfast was finally ready. "Sorry for the wait," I said. "About time. Can't you do it any quicker?" She was still complaining. Any faster would be physically impossible. I almost retorted but held back. I had no choice but to laugh it off. What is this soup? It's too salty. Do you think so? I don't think it's too bad. What? Are you saying there's something wrong with my taste? Serving me something this salty, are you telling me to drop dead quickly? I couldn't believe she would say something like that. What was she even talking about? Why was she being so harsh on me? Feeling puzzled, I finally asked her, "Why are you so harsh on me?" "What are you talking about? I'm not being harsh." "Or what? You want to make me out to be the bad guy?" "No, that's not what I mean." I felt overwhelmed by her pressure and couldn't say anything more. "After you tidy up, start cleaning. And when that's done, there's laundry to do. There's no time to relax," she continued. From that day on, she kept making snide remarks daily, and I was emotionally and physically drained. I was constantly nagged about wrinkles in the laundry or dust in the corners after cleaning. A month into our living together, feeling like I was breaking down, I spoke to my husband about your mother. She's been really hard on me with her remarks every day. Could you maybe talk to her about toning it down a bit? But he was unresponsive. I felt a flash of irritation at his attitude, but then I noticed something was off with him. He was pale and looked like he wanted to say something. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" I asked. He slowly started, "I've been fired from my job." "What? What does that mean? Is this some kind of joke?" Finding myself unable to comprehend what my husband was saying, I froze. "There's been a downsizing at work. I've been laid off." According to my husband, the recent economic downturn had severely affected the company's profits, leading to a massive layoff as a way to secure the company's financial stability. "Does this mean you are unemployed from tomorrow?" "Well, technically, I've got a month's notice before the dismissal takes effect, but after that," he responded weakly. Fortunately, after leaving my job, I had been trading stocks using the knowledge I gained while working at a brokerage firm. It was tough at first, but now I'm making about $30,000 a month, so we're not struggling to get by. While comforting my downtrodden husband, I had completely forgotten about the harassment from my MIL. From the next day on, I endured her relentless harassment with all my might. With my husband out of work, giving up wasn't an option. I had to support him, that was my thought. And so, a month later, as predicted, my husband was officially dismissed and became unemployed. "I'm really sorry. I'll find something new as soon as I can." He started visiting the job center the very next day after being laid off. However, he gradually began to spend his days lounging around at home. "Hey, maybe it's time to start looking for a job?" "I've been looking, but it's hard to find a good one." He always had an excuse and never seemed to actively search for a new job. I reluctantly covered our monthly expenses. The harassment from my MIL escalated day by day, and though I initially felt I needed to be strong, I no longer had the energy to do so. I spent my days listlessly. Then one day, my husband, unusually, said he would go out early in the morning. Maybe he finally decided to look for a job. After seeing him off, I began cleaning as usual. "Make sure you clean properly, will you?" My MIL was relaxing on the living room sofa, sipping tea elegantly. Such a life of leisure. I found myself getting angry at her attitude and instinctively ignored her. The next moment. "Why are you ignoring me? How dare you, as a daughter-in-law?" My MIL suddenly threw a tantrum, rising from the sofa to confront me. I couldn't understand why she was so angry. I continued to ignore her and kept cleaning. "How long will you ignore me? If you don't work, get out of this house." While saying this, she threw boiling water at me. It must have been prepared for making tea. "It's hot. What are you doing?" I couldn't help but cry out at the sudden action. Fortunately, the water wasn't boiling hot, so I avoided getting burned. "So you finally respond. That's what I've been saying. If you don't work, Get out of this house, she said, smirking. I had reached my limit. It was my husband who wasn't working, not me. If that's how it was going to be, then fine. All right. I'll leave, then. It's about time. Make it quick, please. I couldn't stand to be in that house for another second. I packed my things and left my in-laws' house that day. What happens to my MIL from now on is none of my concern. She'll regret kicking me out. I went back to my parents' house. Returning home unexpectedly, my parents were quite surprised, but after I explained the situation, they welcomed me warmly. I had been on edge, waiting for a call from my husband, but there was no phone call, not even a message. I guess I don't matter to him anymore. I did feel a bit lonely, but I resolved not to reach out to him until he contacted me. A month has passed since I returned to my parents' house, but still no word from my husband. Feeling my affection for him fading, I considered initiating contact to discuss a divorce. One day, the doorbell at my parents' house rang early in the morning. Checking the intercom monitor, I saw my husband and his mother standing there. What do they want now, after all this time? Yes, what is it? Just forgive us already and come back home. My MIL was still yelling through the intercom as usual. Forgive? Forgive what exactly? What have I ever done to her? With all due respect, what exactly is there to forgive? I haven't done anything that requires your forgiveness, I retorted and unilaterally ended the intercom call. The audacity of my MIL, showing up unannounced and talking down to me, made my blood boil. Yet, they didn't leave, instead starting to bang on the front door. Why did you hang up on me? Come back home right this instant. Realizing that ignoring them would only cause a disturbance in the neighborhood, I reluctantly opened the door and let my husband and MIL inside. After ushering them into the living room and seating them on the sofa, I asked what they came for. Excuse me, but why have you come here all of a sudden? That's what I'm saying, come back home. It made absolutely no sense. Weren't they the ones who told me to leave their home? Respectfully, I only left because you told me to. Asking me to come back now is absurd, I calmly responded. Besides, it seemed like my husband didn't care whether I left or stayed, so I had no intention of returning to my in-laws. Don't keep harping on about such childish matters. I'm saying we forgive you. Forgive me? For what? I've already said I've done nothing that needs your forgiveness. We're telling you, even someone without a job like you is welcome in our home. Excuse me? I'm not the one without a job. That would be my husband. And even if I did return, I'd just be slaving away every day. Indeed, I'm not working at the moment, but what about your son? What does he have to do with anything? Yes, it does matter. Aren't you aware? Your son is the one who's unemployed. My MIL looked at me as if I was speaking nonsense. Apparently, my husband hadn't told her he'd been fired. Or rather, it's concerning that she hadn't noticed on her own. What? Is that true? She turned to my husband, who wouldn't look up or say anything. Seeing his demeanor, my MIL could hardly hide her irritation. If you don't speak up, how will we understand anything? Say something. All right. I'll talk. I was actually fired from my job, my husband finally confessed under the pressure from his mother. Initially shocked to hear he had quit his job, my MIL's surprise soon turned into anger towards him. Why have you kept this a secret all this time? How do you expect us to live from now on? So, that is. I haven't found a job yet, but it's not like Sarah has no income, right? We'll manage somehow, won't we? To think he's not seriously looking for work and just eyeing my earnings. Frankly, he's scum. Hearing my husband's words, I've had enough. I was foolish to even think of supporting someone like him for a moment. Let me guess, you came to me because you don't want to work, right? No, that's not it at all. Hit the nail on the head. Clearly, my husband is flustered. Then why come now? Since the day I went back to my parents' house until today, you haven't even sent a message, let alone called. I was busy looking for a job. I didn't have time to contact you. What a terrible excuse. Even if he had been job hunting from dawn to dusk, he could have sent a message. I'm too appalled to say anything. Well, since he says so, just come back home. My mother-in-law interrupts our conversation to address me. Come back home? The nerve. After all the terrible things I've been through. Come back? You must be joking. After all the awful things I've received from you, there's no way I'm coming back. That's an exaggeration, dear. I was just thinking of you. Thinking of me? By pouring boiling water on me? Unable to hold back any longer, I let loose on my mother-in-law for all the past grievances. My husband, unaware of the boiling water incident, looks puzzled. Huh? Mom, you poured boiling water on Sarah? Is that true? Yes, it's true. She suddenly poured it on me while I was cleaning. Luckily, I wasn't burned, but I wanted to report it to the police right then and there. Hey, why would you do such a thing? It's because Sarah wouldn't listen to me. My words spark an argument between my husband and Emil. These people are too noisy, barging into someone's house like this. It's time for them to leave. If you're going to argue, please do it at home. If you've finished your business here, please leave. As soon as I tell them to leave, their attitude changes drastically. My husband and Emil, who were so bold a moment ago, are now begging me with tears in their eyes. Please come back home. I promise I won't do anything terrible again. Sarah, I'm asking you too. I will definitely find a job. Clearly, their underlying motive is my earnings. From my husband's perspective, I have a decent income, and he thinks he can get away without working by just saying the right things. Emil probably thinks it's a 2-for-1 deal, relieve her stress by harassing me and get me to do the housework. Okay, I understand. Did you think I would say that? I'm never coming back. You both see me as nothing more than a convenient woman, don't you? That's not true. I'll make sure you don't have to suffer anymore. My husband says this, but what is there to believe now? You say that, but as soon as I come back, you'll just laze around and not look for work, right? If you're so adamant, why haven't you found a job by now? It's obvious you don't want to work. It seems I've hit the mark. My husband has nothing to say in return. You too? You won't do anything terrible again? Who could believe such a thing? After constantly harassing me, you'll just start doing it again soon. Emil, like my husband, falls silent. Their silence speaks volumes. I leave the two of them in the living room and head to my room. When I return to the living room 5 minutes later, they are still silent, looking down. How long do you plan on keeping this up? Well, it's fine. More importantly, write this. I thrust the divorce papers at my husband. Of course, my name was already filled in. What is this? My husband, suddenly faced with the divorce papers, looked utterly bewildered. He must have never imagined he'd be told we were getting a divorce. Can't you see? It's a divorce form. You said you'd find a job immediately at first, but you never even try to look for work, and you don't even contact me when I go back to my parents' house. I've had enough of someone who does that. Wait a minute! Isn't this too sudden? How self-centered can you be? It's your fault we're in this situation, isn't it? My decision to divorce won't change anymore. Whatever you say is pointless. You don't think it's cruel to divorce me? My mother-in-law unexpectedly chimed in. I don't think it's cruel at all. It's his own doing. I said coldly, facing her. It's partly her fault, too, though. I calmly thought to myself. All right, I understand. But don't regret divorcing, okay? My husband, seemingly resigned, signed the divorce papers while telling me this. Regret? There's no way. If anything, I feel refreshed to be getting a divorce. I'll submit these divorce papers to the town hall. I don't need alimony, so just leave as soon as possible. Thus, our divorce was finalized. I wondered if I went too far, but I was sure nothing would change if I didn't do this. I'd still be exploited by my MIL, and my husband wouldn't attempt to work properly. After kicking both out of my parents' house, I submitted the divorce papers to the town hall that day. 2 weeks later, while I was relaxing at home, I received a call on my cell phone from my MIL. What could it be this time? Yes, what is it? Hey! The electricity and gas are shut off. What did you do? She was frantic, but I hadn't done anything. It was just that I had stopped paying for all the household expenses at my in-laws' house. I haven't done anything special. That can't be. Everything was working fine until suddenly. Are you paying the bills properly? Huh. She was speechless. She couldn't even understand that? You pay money as compensation for what you use. Even an elementary student would understand that. It's not, huh? Electricity and gas aren't free. You probably got cut off for not paying the bills. Wait a minute. That's troubling. Sarah, could you cover it just for this month? How much can one underestimate others? Why should I pay when we're not even living together anymore? Have you finally lost your marbles? Look, Dylan and I aren't married anymore, and we don't live together. Why should I have to pay? But we have no money. Ask Dylan then. He said he'd find a job and work, didn't he? Dylan still hasn't found a job. As his ex-wife, you could help out. Enough with belittling people. Asking an ex-wife for help is truly pathetic. I understand. When I said that, my MIL's voice noticeably brightened. I'm glad you understand. So, I'll count on you for the payment. I understand what you're saying very well. I will no longer have anything to do with you from now on. I don't want to be conveniently used by someone like you ever again. Goodbye. What are you saying? My MIL still seemed to want to say something, but I unilaterally hung up the phone. Of course, I made sure to block her number so she couldn't call me again. I had been through a lot with my MIL, and I never thought my husband would turn out to be such a loser. Now, I've finally cut ties. After hanging up the phone with my MIL, I muttered, "Serves you right." A month passed. Neither my ex-husband nor my MIL came to my parents' house, and I spent my days in peace. One holiday, as I was checking the stock charts, which is my daily routine, I heard the sound of a message being received on my cell phone. Assuming it was just spam or something, I opened my phone, only to find it was from my ex-husband. I'm truly sorry for everything. Even after getting fired, you paid for so much, and I took it for granted. I've recently started working at a factory as a temporary worker and finally making some money. It's been weird to say this now, but if you are okay with it, could you come back? Since you left, Mom has been tough on me, and it's been hard. That was the content of the message from my ex-husband. As if I'd ever go back, what is he thinking? I support him working at the factory, but I'll never consider getting back together. It seems my MIL has started taking her frustrations out on him since I left. Guess she hasn't changed at all. Thinking this, I didn't reply to the message and blocked my ex-husband. 6 months after the divorce, I started dating a man introduced to me by a friend. He's 5 years younger than me but very mature and treasures me a lot. We're not thinking about it yet, but someday, we might want to get married. Right now, I want to cherish the happy times with him, from the bottom of my heart.